Welcome to Mooney Reads, and welcome to a recommendations video. At the time of filming, Sapphic September is just around the corner, so I thought I would sit and talk through some really good recommendations for that. When I originally sat down to put this list together, this is going to be 10 great recommendations for Sapphic September. It has grown to at least 12. Plus whatever TBR books I'm going to mention. So I have a mix of fiction and nonfiction Sapphic books, and I think I covered basically every spot on the bingo board except for Sapphic Nights. I don't think I have anything for that one. Obviously, new to you author is going to depend on who you are. Chances are at least one of these will be new to you. And if they're somehow not new to you and you've read all of these, please let me know, and I hope you have an Instagram that I can follow because you have great taste. And then for choose your own prompt, since you're seeing them on this video, you could use that as books that have been recommended to me. And so that would fulfill that one if that's what you chose your prompt to be. So to start things off, I'm going to talk about nonfiction and then fiction, and then I'll talk about some things that I have on my TBR. And I will start out with one that has both fiction and nonfiction in it, which is Lesbians in Germany, 1890s through 1920s, which has been edited by Lillian, Faderman, and Brigitte Eriksson. This is an anthology of works that were originally written in or around Germany before World War II that looked at lesbian identity. So all of these have been translated from the German, making them fit for a translated prompt. And this was put out by the Naiad Press, making this fit for the Indie Pub prompt. This features both autobiographical essay and excerpts from novels, and it explores the different ideas about what it meant to be lesbian that were present in Germany around this time. And for those who may not know, Berlin in particular was like a queer hub before Hitler took over. And it was really interesting reading this because of how many things so much mirrored things that were happening now or things that had happened in recent history. There are so many different perceptions of what it means to these different individuals to be attracted to women. There are definitely some that see it more as like masculinity. So some of these people might even have identified as trans kind of in today's parlance. There's no way to know, of course, but this just kind of shows how like gender and sexuality history are sort of intertwined. But this was really, really interesting and continues to be really pertinent. And if you're also really interested in like banned books and stuff like this would be a really great one to read, simply because these were the kind of works that people were getting rid of in Germany at the time. There's a reason that these weren't translated to English until the 1980s, you know? And it's the sort of thing, obviously, that people are trying to get rid of in some parts of the United States today. So if you can get your hands on this one, it's really good. I think if you search for PDFs of this, I think those also exist as well. Another really cool piece of lesbian history to read is How We Get Free, Black Feminism in the Combahee River Collective. The Combahee River Collective was a Black lesbian socialist group in the 1970s. And this includes their statement, which is incredible, and then some interviews with several of the founders as well as more contemporary activists, kind of talking about the Combahee River Collective's impact on activism today. This is definitely one that I've recommended many times before, and if you haven't gotten to this one yet and are at all interested in queer history, that's definitely one to read. After that, I have a couple of memoirs, the first of which is Taking Turns, which is a graphic memoir written by a lesbian who worked in an AIDS ward in the early 90s. She worked in one of the ones in particular that was more advanced than a lot of other hospitals. However, even still, at the height of the epidemic, it was just really awful and really hopeless. And she walks through her experience kind of starting kind of, fresh out of school and kind of into this setting and looking at what they did to help these people, because starting off there was not very much to do other than like palliative care. And the way that they were able to focus on art as a means for kind of processing their different feelings about their diagnosis and proximity to death is really what stood out to me in this. And of course, as you go on through the book, more technologies develop and things do look better. So I think there is a positive tilt to the book overall. Even if you aren't super familiar with the AIDS epidemic, this also walks you through some of the basic things. So stuff like looking at the timeline, and different things like that. So it would be a good place to start in that way. It's a really important look at the history, especially because this is what it was like in a place that was like one of the best places in the country you could be at, if you were dealing with this. It's really important history to know, especially given the state of the world and everything. In general, I think looking at the AIDS epidemic is so important for understanding the current political landscape, which is why I've been reading a lot about it. But this is a really good one. It's an interesting memoir, and the author is lesbian, so it fits for Sapphic September. It would also fill the comic or graphic novel prompt. And then the final nonfiction book that I have is another memoir, and that is She by Binnie Bruce Pratt. This particular version is a little harder to get, but blessedly it has been republished, so please go and get it. This was just so incredible. I read this earlier this year, actually in a vlog, and Binnie Bruce Pratt is a poet, and while this is not poetry, her prerogative as a poet is really clear throughout all of this. And through this, we get looks into her life. She grew up in the South and was married to a man, had kids, then came out as a lesbian. And we get to hear a lot about different lovers that she has. And then the kind of pivotal point in the book is when she meets Leslie Feinberg. And the whole book is a love letter to them. And I just absolutely adore this. That also, a lot of this, as well as talking about like her life and her love life, it also talks about her activism as well. Kind of talking about some of the racial dynamics from where she came from, as well as there's a really neat part towards the end of this where she's at the infamous Women's Festival with a bunch of trans people and kind of their experience marching through that. So this was really incredible, and if you haven't had the opportunity to read this, you absolutely should. And then from that point, we can get into the fiction. So for fiction, I'm going to start with the book that I read in the same vlog as the Binnie Bruce Pratt memoir, and that is Her by Cherry Muhanji. This was originally published in 1990. It's another indie pub one. It focuses on a group of women in Detroit in the late 50s, early 60s. The main person who is focused on the most just got married and is pregnant and is moving into her husband's parents' house. There's a lot of focus on the relationship between her and the mother-in-law, kind of how they navigate. And when I say relationship, I don't mean like romantic. I just mean like generally them getting on. the mother character is very interesting too. This explores agency and relationships between women, and like the city of Detroit at the time as well. Kind of like that itself plays a big part. And I had a really good time with it. This is one that I know won't be for everyone. It's kind of similar to how I feel about like Sarah Schulman's novels, where like I really really like them, but the who's also Sapphic, and if you like weird 90s lit fic, that would be interesting to read as well. But with this one, time kind of gets a little funky. I think at a certain point in the book, it's not really clear what events happen in what order. And the character has a really drastic change. You kind of look at masculinity and femininity a bit. I had a good time with this one. So if that kind of lit fic sounds like your thing, this one is really good. And this is an author who's one of the Black lesbian canon that's just like not talked about enough. The other kind of weird and narrative lit fic that I have is Nevada by Imogen Binnie, which if you've looked at like any Sapphic or trans lists, you probably have seen this. This focuses on a trans woman who's basically going through a quarter life crisis. Her girlfriend cheated on her, and so they broke up, and she basically goes on a bender and bikes around New York City, and at a certain point it pivots to Nevada. It's messy, it's interesting, the writing is kind of like interesting, but again, maybe not for everyone. There are like no quotations, that sort of thing. But if you're into weird lit fic, this is absolutely one to check out. Now, this was originally published by Topside Press, which I don't think exists any longer, or it went under for a time, and this was really hard to get. And this is the original cover. So in that way, you could potentially count it for indie published, but it did get picked up by, I think this is an imprint of one of the big publishers. Yeah, Macmillan. But even still, so I have both copies, and if things work out, I actually want to reread this and put my notes from this copy into this one, because while I like having this copy, whoever owned it before me obviously didn't like the book and left some really annoying notes. So I'm going to be happy to have only my own notes in a copy. Then dipping into horror, we have Toxic Yuri again, with the Z Word, which is also independently published, and I think would count for sci-fi because there are zombies. This has a very kind of messy, dramatic main character, and a lot of discourse on rainbow capitalism. This is a really fun romp. So if you're in the mood for something summery or themed around Pride at all, this takes place during Pride Month, and it would be a good one to pick. Yet another one for the Toxic Yuri prompt, I fear, is She Who Became the Sun by Shelley Parker Chan, which, if you've seen like any other Sapphic book list, you probably heard of, but I loved it. And this is another one that I need to reread as well, because I listened to the audiobook of this, which was really cool. But there's a lot of characters and a lot of stuff happening, like politics wise, that my brain I don't think was able to fully process completely. But even still, I had a really good time with this. The main character is the epitome of gray morality. Like, is what she doing probably gonna hurt a lot of people and really destructive? Like, yes, but also he's right. So this also fits for the AAPI prompt. This is actually a retelling, fantasy retelling of Chinese history. Continuing on with sci-fi fantasy, I think The next two that I have are on like a lot of lists, but I can't not include them because they're some of my favorites. We have Upright Women Wanted by Sarah Gailey, which is a dystopian. My elevator pitch for this is queer anti-fascist librarians in the Wild West. If that's not enough to make you pick it up, I don't know what will be. But this is just really fun, and it's pretty short. September is also Shorty September. So there's more than one reason for you to pick it up if you're watching this when it comes out. And then the next one that I have is Seep by Hannah Porter, which is also dystopian, kind of. Really, these two books are both dystopian. Upright Women Wanted is like fascist dystopia, and then The Seep is like post-alien invasion dystopia. This, while it is sci-fi, while there is alien invasion, this is first and foremost like very character focused. It does have some weird alien shit that blew my mind, but a lot of it is really a meditation on this character dealing with the changes in the world around her, and grieving her wife who decides to be reborn as a baby. So this features alcoholism pretty heavily, but this is just such a fascinating book. I love kind of deep character focused stories like this. And again, the alien stuff just kind of blew my mind too. So as well as fitting for sci-fi, this also fits for trans main character and focusing on a character over 40. The other book that I have that has main characters over 40 is Wherever Is Your Heart by Anita Kelly, which is a romance novella that I read earlier this year and am like completely obsessed with. This features a butch couple. One of them is a bartender and the other is a truck driver that has frequented this bar when she's in the area. So this has the benefit of being both like a novella, so it's like short and sweet, but there's also that feeling of a slow burn. I love how music is incorporated into this. I love the kind of descriptions of the landscape that's around them. It's just a really great one. And this is a part of the Moonlighters series, and it's technically the third book. You don't need to read them in order at all, so if you only wanted to read this one, that would be perfectly fine, and in fact, it is the first one that I read in the series, and I was fine. And this also fits prompts for independently published book. I think this is actually self-published. And also for the disabled character prompt, because both of these characters deal with chronic pain. And then the final recommendation that I have is a manga, and that is Doughnuts Under the Crescent Moon. This is a really sweet, slower burn workplace romance. Both of the main characters are, I think, neurodivergent coded. This I don't think has been said by the author, but it seems obvious to me. And at least one of the characters I think is also demi-romantic coded. So even though it doesn't say it outright in the book, I personally would count it because it just seems obvious to me as a reader. So this series was just so sweet and lovely. My only complaint is that I wanted it to be longer. So those are my recommendations. I thought I would take the second part of this video to talk about some of the books that are on my TBR. I am personally terrible at following an actual TBR, so this is not an official whatever, but these are some that are on my radar that could potentially be read soon, that I think that if you're looking for stuff for Sapphic September, you could also consider too. Call the Lesbian Line is a 2025 release that is nonfiction, and the author has looked into an old call log from this lesbian call center. And so it's a mix of that as well as memoir. It sounds really neat, and it's one that I've been wanting to get into. Other nonfiction that's on my radar that would be good for Sapphic September, I have Bi, The Hidden Culture, History, and Science of Bisexuality by Julia Shaw. Obviously, this isn't exclusively Sapphic, but it's written, I'm assuming, by a Sapphic person. And it's relevant to an awful lot of Sapphics. I've read parts of this, and I really want to get in and read it from cover to cover, because it just, the what I've seen of it so far is really good. And then I have Moby Dyke, an obsessive quest to track down the last remaining lesbian bars in America, which is kind of a travelogue, memoir sort of a thing. And I actually have like a little kind of rabbit hole, like a few other books about gay bars that I would really like to get into, and I think this would be kind of a cool place to start, as good of a place as any, certainly. Particularly because I think there are a lot more books about gay bars that are more catered to men than there are books about lesbian bars. Getting into the fiction book that I'm considering reading, I have Leap, which I recently borrowed from the library, which is a YA graphic novel about these girls who are in ballet school and end up being roommates, forming a friendship, and all that. Some sci-fi fantasy that I would really like to get into includes The River Has Roots, which is written by one of the authors of This Is How You Lose the Time War, which I also need to read. I feel like I'm the last person on the planet to read it. And I actually started a while back, and the writing was so beautiful. It's like one of those things, I don't know if anyone else does it or if I'm like the weirdo here, but where it is just so good that I just like stop. I get like intimidated or something, but usually what happens with these books is that I'll get stuck, put it down for like ever, and then I'll sit and read it all in one day. So maybe that'll happen with this. I certainly think I could at least maybe get to this newer one. It's pretty short, and from what I've seen other people say, it's Sapphic too. And then I have Someone You Can Build a Nest In, which features an asexual lesbian and I believe a Sapphic relationship. I've heard so many good things about this, so hopefully I can get to it soon. Editing back here for a little commentary on my TBR. So I filmed this, I don't know, sometime in mid-August, and I'm editing it now a little over a week into September. If I'm being realistic, my reading could go like anywhere. But just to give you a couple of books that are presently further up on my radar than some of the ones I mentioned before. Someone You Can Build a Nest In is still a pretty big contender. But I've since added a couple of classics that I think I potentially want to read maybe. Oranges Are Not the Only Fruit by Jeanette Winterson. And I had originally, I think I'm going to take it out for time, but I'd originally mentioned Sunburn, which also, like Orange Is Not the Only Fruit, has like religious kind of discussions in it. So I think I'm going to read the Jeanette Winterson first, and then Sunburn. Before I read either of those other two, I need to finish Hell Followed With Us, which is not Sapphic, but is on my TBR. So there's going to be a through line of, I guess, religious trauma books. But anyways, another Sapphic classic that I might get to is The Women of Brewster Place by Gloria Naylor. And this one also has a movie adaptation, which is good for both Shorty September and Read Queer All Year, which has that as one of their things this month. I also have Hospital Time by Amy Hoffman on my list, and this is a memoir from a lesbian who was around in the late 80s, early 90s, specifically talking about the AIDS epidemic. I'm unsure if she was a nurse or just a volunteer, but I'll find out if I get to reading it. And then the final one I'll mention on the Sapphic September side of things is Trans Love, which is a anthology, a nonfiction anthology looking at trans love in different ways. And I suspect some of it will be Sapphic. I just browsed through some of the author bios, and at least one of them is a lesbian. So we'll see. But yeah, I just wanted to put out there some of the actual things that might be closer to the front of my radar than the things I was thinking a month ago. So that is all that I have for Sapphic September Rex and the like. In the comments, let me know if you've read any of these or tell me about your favorite Sapphic book. Thank you all so much for watching. Bye.